compel those other dams to participate. But I'll just say now that a model which looks at coordinated operations then becomes part of the record and compels FERC to consider whether coordination might be better than the absence of coordination. We should propose adaptive management in response to climate change as well as other events in a form
that fits FERC's jurisdiction. Now, forgive me for being legalistic, but you have to think of your science in legalistic terms for it to have any effect on FERC's decision. So this is the way you have to write it up. If event X occurs, then the licensee will operate the project in the following manner. So if the snowmelt accelerates by 2 weeks, the peak snowmelt accelerates by 2 weeks in this watershed, then this is how the licensee will store in response to that. If the peak snowmelt accelerates by a month, this is how the licensee will respond to that event. State your science in those terms, a conditional obligation of the licensee. If we propose adaptive management in that form, again, we compel FERC to take us seriously. By contrast, if we propose it in the form of what the licensee and others should do in the watershed, FERC doesn't have jurisdiction over others in this proceeding, and it will disregard altogether recommendations about adaptive management stated in that form. This may seem trivial, but it's not. It's fundamental strategy. We should describe adaptive management in response to climate change and other events in the form that permits FERC to say yes and include it in its licensing decision. Which leads to my third recommendation. Which goes to how we help coordinate a licensed project with other dams in a watershed. Now, FERC can't compel other dams in a watershed to cooperate, but it's possible that we could. So let's take the Yuba as a for instance. There's an Army Corps dam that is linked with several licensed projects. There are procedures by which we could ask the Army Corps to participate in the relicensing, and failing that, ask it to operate on its own initiative to consider better coordination of its project, its dam, Englebright, with the licensed projects. Now, there are other water supply dams downstream, same logic. We could ask the State Water Board to regulate those other dams in a manner that coordinates with the licensed projects. So what will the license say? The license will say something like this. The licensee will operate its project in the following manner if this third party does something, specify the event, that permits better cooperation between that non-jurisdictional dam upstream or downstream and the licensed project. Again, it's the build the better mousetrap strategy. FERC will not, on its own initiative, do what is rational for watershed management, namely compel a licensee to cooperate with others operating other dams in that watershed. But if we bring a workable approach to FERC, the equation changes. Next recommendation. We should use the State Water Resources Control Board, in a friendly way of course, to accomplish these strategies. Under the Federal Power Act, a license may issue only if the state certifies that the project will comply with water quality standards for the affected waters. FERC complains that the State Water Board here and its counterparts in other states are almost more powerful than they are. Well, that's a compliment. The State Water Board can require studies of climate change. It can require methods besides IFIM for understanding project impacts on aquatic species. It can require coordination of a licensed project with other projects that have water rights because those water rights are under the State Water Board's jurisdiction. It can require adaptive management. So
we really need to do a better job, scientists and attorneys and others alike, of helping the State Water Board improve the science and the management based on the science for response to climate change. If the State Water Board leads, FERC must follow. Its only alternative is to deny a license. But if the state submits a timely certification, FERC must incorporate it into the license verbatim, and that certification then becomes a condition enforceable both under the Federal Power Act and under the Port of Cologne Act and the Clean Water Act. Last recommendation. We should take this topic of hydropower being responsive to climate change to the Public Utilities Commission. Now, at the end of my talk, I'm hesitant to get into another whole area of law, but I feel compelled to do this because I think this is really important. A public utility like Pacific Gas and Electric Company recovers its capital cost as well as its operational and maintenance cost through rates set by the Public Utilities Commission. FERC does not set retail rates. It sets rates for transmission of electricity across state boundaries in interstate commerce, but it does not set retail rates. Those are the exclusive jurisdiction of the Public Utilities Commission. Now, in a typical licensing proceeding, the licensee will sooner or later say something like the following: your flow schedule is too expensive. Adapting to climate change in this manner is too expensive. Retrofitting our project, that capital improvement, too expensive. No, we won't do it. And FERC, in the absence of a settlement, will accept the licensee's word. It is extraordinarily rare for anyone to calculate the actual rate impact of the recommendations we are making for ecological improvement, including response to climate change. And when we have done it, the impact is typically on the range of a small fraction of 1 cent per kilowatt hour, sometimes 1/100 of a cent or less per kilowatt hour. So why don't we take this dispute about whether a proactive strategy is affordable to the Public Utilities Commission and get their advice. Thank you again for your very kind attention. I wish I could be present to engage in the policy discussion which will occur this afternoon, or to answer any questions you might have about me, but I am certain that Holly and Steve and others can answer any questions you might put to me. Again, thank you and best of luck in this conference. Bye-bye.